If the technology of today is continually built out in the fashion it's being implemented, the dystopian cyber future perpetuated by all of those 19th century movies and books will become a reality. That, along with the other dystopian American idiocracy going on right now, really the world over. It's not an American thing solely. It's just that we've got all the cameras on of us. We've got the spotlight. So any problem with humanity that does exist, it's likely that it's going to be highlighted in America. And not only is that something that's a big part of it, but you also have the media playing a massive part. We're seeing now that a lot of things are just falling apart. They are falling apart, much because the foundations that these things were built on were all lies. A lot of these things were just complete lies. And really, I mean, you can imagine movies like Blade Runner and The Fifth Element and stuff like that, where it's like somehow there's all this technology and there is, still the same like elite state that exists, but yet the dregs of society, it's only expanded and things are even worse. And like people are more machines than anything being used like that. And I don't know if people are aware of something called Warhammer 40,000, but Warhammer 40,000 is probably the strongest physical form of an analogy of the extremes that humanity can go to. And we will go to those extremes if given the opportunity. We're seeing this now with the level of deprivation with everything. I mean, you could just see the stuff that's being pushed. It's out of this world. I mean, there's something called plastination, which is like, you can like you basically within 48 hours you can only do this within 48 hours. Your entire body is basically plasticized. Plastic is put into your body and you look totally the same. However you looked when you died is how you're going to look. And they can do like anything with your body. They have exhibits where there's like people having sex and in crazy acts. There's also other things where it's supposed to be more like art or anatomy, but these things are like crazy, and some of them anyway. And then some of them are like these Chinese prisoners and everything, and they're on an exhibit. A lot of this stuff is so wild, but it's like these things. It's reminding, I'm sure, a lot of people of like the medieval times and stuff where it's just there are things going on in places like the West, places where you really would never like have to be exposed to this stuff for the most part unless you're seeking it out. And like it's there. It's there. I mean, it's thrown in your face by everything left and right. I mean, Kleenex coming out the other day doing a Bud Light. You had to see this advertisement. It was amazing. And not it was like the most LGBTQ thing ever. And I'm all for that. But pushing it down people's throats, and then also like they had this shot where it was like it looked like a famous musician or something like that had his arm around some dude that's wearing a balaclava, with his shirt off and everything. It's like, what are they like romanticizing terrorism and stuff? It's absolutely wild. Like beheadings, like that's what, like, what they wear when you have a like do a beheading, like that's what that dude is wearing. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts, things that are going on. And then, moving into more of like a government aspect, like all it's starting to look pretty clear now that a lot of the seized money, any like cartel or drug money, stuff like that, any illegal money that's been seized, it looks like a lot of that is just going to fund the deep state, as well as like tons of tax money that, they incite these panics. And then a lot of that, a lot of those events where they incite panic, they also are like pooling all of this money into other places so that it can come back. It's being funneled offshore and then coming back. They're finding out that tons of this money with Ukraine, and that's why they don't want Tucker over there right now, is because he's going to expose everything for the most part. And not even that, but they're going to give Putin a voice, which they haven't done this entire time. Though really, Putin has been against the establishment, the globalists, the Zionists, all of these groups for the longest time. At least he's been speaking out about it, and he does a lot with that in his own country. So his actions back up his words. And yeah, I mean, you don't want to be, quote, working with the enemy, but you don't know necessarily who is your enemy unless you can have open communication with information, with everything. And when we're being told something, it's always very clear that there's something else going on. Like immediately that they go after Tucker for this, anytime they're mad about something, you can immediately go quickly and you can spot a hypocrisy. Whatever they're mad about, they've definitely done that before. So it's absolutely mind-blowing in that way how, they want to make all this clout all the time when, people are rational. My people, all the people are rational for the most part. When it comes to your own thinking, a lot of people are figuring this stuff out, and we don't want to be spoon-fed. We're not going to be spoon-fed. We're not going to stand for this bullshit anymore with this stuff where we're gonna, look into things. We're gonna get the information ourselves, especially when things don't make any sense. That at the very least. And it's just like you've got the Great Awakening right now. And it's another way to say the great catch up, really, because a lot of things, we're in this chaotic state, and there's a lot of terrible things happening, but just as equally, there are amazing things happening right now that are uncontained. That's the thing. This freedom that's caused all this chaos and everything like that, it's also turning a blind eye to the people who are using this chaotic period to do good. I mean, there's been massive changes in a lot of industries, and really there's also been a turnover of the perspective, people's view on the other industries that so far nothing's been done, but things do need to change. And there's a lot going on with that between the medical industry. I mean, the taxes, the border, a lot of the laws that are in this country that are not being followed, but they claim, and we need more of them. And it's like, it's just not the case, And we're like the subjects of society are coming into the information that like the masters have had. And it's something that's rocking us because the whole AI thing, it's like a fragment of society is playing with that stuff, but the rest of us, we're just like going about our lives, and all this, like, we're gonna get lost in that way where those things will be something you need to go study. I've been using Chat GPT and everything, and you can tell that it's getting more difficult to talk to this thing. Like they're making it more and more problems are being highlighted. Like most recently, there's this huge copyright issue because all of the material that these AI are referencing, I mean, most of it is copyrighted. And you can recreate these things and work your way around those copyrights. I mean, if you ask to have it, make you a mouse with the description of Mickey Mouse, it's going to give you Mickey Mouse for the most part. So anyway, there are these problems being highlighted that are then making it so like the whole format and like how accessible it is also changing in that aspect, because now you have to word things very differently. And that's going to be a whole nother aspect of society that the younger generation will figure out, like it's brushing their teeth, like we did Facebook and everything like that, MySpace. It's going to be a lot different for these younger kids. They're going to know this stuff because they use it. They're going to get through school with it. Like, yeah, they're going to have that same thing in our head, like where we were typing papers and like, wow, man, our parents had to write, that sucked. They're going to be thinking with us, how the hell did they do all these papers and stuff by having to write it themselves, or even on a computer, or write it, what, it doesn't matter, because they're going to have these fucking programs that just do this stuff for them for the most part. They just have to like use the right tools to make the whole thing complete. That's about it. But yeah, it's wild. But also in this chaos, there's people manipulating and taking over large aspects of our society. I mean, there's been like an open door in this country, and our enemies know that just as well as we do, even better for the most part, because they understand it as a weakness. We understand it as just, we take it for granted. But really, these these institutions that we've built, they're being taken over. They're being absolutely taken over. The same machinations at work to currently stifle, distort, and interpret information to the public are at work in every aspect. I mean, even in geology and archaeology, like a lot of that stuff is being stifled. They're coming up with new discoveries, and things are being challenged, but the legacy media and all that, they do not want to change from what is already established. Like all of these new things are coming out, and they're not letting these things happen. And they're also at the same time, it's like they're gatekeeping, because also there's a financial interest. They're getting money from other countries, whatever it might be, but people who don't have American interests at heart, those are the ones gatekeeping and also creating other institutions to replace these. And anything credible and new developing, the discoveries, they're always squashed by the establishment. And people lose their positions any way that those people could have a voice or further their research. They remove them, they take their from them, and in turn, like the positions of authority, they feel threatened to lose them. And any time that happens, they're going to gatekeep people out of it. And the welfare state, now at this point, it's like it's being utilized by those same people to now fund waves of illegal migrants coming into this country. And now, they're getting put all over America. And then to think that nothing is going to happen from that. Even at the very least, these people do not have American values at heart. They don't know anything about this country other than the crap that Telemundo and all these other, you know, people, institutions talk about this country. So, what is going to happen when all these people get here? And now they're using the welfare state to give these people a platform to operate within the United States. And now eventually, Alex Berenstein talked about this with Tucker Carlson. And it's like, it's never happened before where, like the Chinese, that they keep letting their population turn lopsided, where the males are tremendously overpopulating the females. And it's only historically evident that that's it's indicative of pushing for expansion of your country, because it forces the males to be a lot more warlike and more, you know, desiring those things of, expansion and women and treasure and conquest and all those things. And really, there's not enough room, there's not enough women, so it's already a huge problem. But anyway, then you go back to the fact that a lot of the states now are being set up, and they don't care about all the rich people leaving, which is another thing that's like a first. And historically, the only reason why you would want to do that is because you know that there are people ready to replace them. But now it's not Americans, because, you know, it used to be the case for the most part, but it's not so much when the rich people leave that more rich people replace them. Not Americans. And now what seems to be the case is that foreign entities are going to be the ones that are ready and willing to take up the place in these American cities and states, that all of the Americans will basically be leaving, and now it's only going to be foreign interests. And now everything is American branded. They have American companies. I'm getting my garlic. This is the first time I've ever seen. It's not made in China, but it's product of China. The Chinese farms are growing food in America, and we don't know what they're doing to the soil or anything like that. We have no idea. Why are they even being allowed to do this? Especially not without higher restrictions, considering the fact that their country and their regulations are not as stringent as ours. So making sure that their facilities are up to the standards by third parties that are non, NGOs, which anyway, that's a whole nother problem. But it's become a problem now, where we're getting stuff in America that is coming from American companies, but it's not. They're not. Again, like with the garlic, it's coming from an American company, but it's a product of China. It's not made in China. It's not being grown in China. They're growing it here, and they're selling it with an American brand name, but it is a product of China. So anyway, this is just one of the ways that they're going about doing this. And then also, there's just our legal systems. Everything is being overloaded. You have the immigration system, the tax system, the legal system, everything, the medical system, Social Security, every single thing, disability. Everything is being overloaded right now. And they're doing this purposely. It's an overburden, so nothing can be dealt with. There's already things like in New York City, they're working off of a backlog. They're working in New York City, the maintenance backlog for everything is enormous. I was watching a documentary, and basically the only things that are worked on in New York City are top priority things. So nothing gets worked on the backlog until it becomes a top priority. So only the things up at the top of the list are being worked on. And it's like the list is so long. It goes back like 40 years, probably even longer with certain things. So it's like everything is falling apart in this country because there is, just like a third world country, there's so much corruption going on at every level of our government and the institutions, everything, because there is no accountability. At the highest level, nobody is accountable, and therefore, at every lower level, people are feeling like they could do anything they want. And it's being perpetuated, absolutely. You could see that. I mean, the criminals know that more than anybody. There's already a ring where they go, people steal stuff in these sanctuary cities, like New York City, and then they just hustle them to other states and sell them there. And they keep doing this. And it's unbelievable. There are so many things that are being taken advantage of. And the thing is, China does not have a short-term plan. None of this is short-term. They had an extremely long-term plan to get where they are right now, and it worked out much better than they had planned. And this is going on now. You are seeing the foreign interests basically take over the United States. But it's a slow crawl, and it's not going to happen without a fight. So I don't want people to be scared. I want people to be informed. This is a lot of information, but this is like a fraction of what's going on. And I feel like we have a duty in this new time to really be responsible with the information that we consume, and then really like what we put to use, because we're consuming a lot of information, but what we choose to use that information for is going to be pivotal. And I think a big part of it is maybe not taking so much of it in, but you do have to stay informed and take in those bits. You're going to learn that social media is like heroin in 10 to 20, 30 years. For sure. It's definitely, well, really, I should say the applications like Instagram and those things like that. It's going to be known as a very bad thing, and something that was like a huge detriment to society. We're not using it how China is, where it's showing you all the smartest things and all these really, technology and innovations and, ways to use your brain and all that stuff. It's not doing that for the most part, anyway. Interesting stuff, but hopefully we can tailor that to be more something we use for us instead of something that's using us to then do that more and more and more and more and better. It's not good, you know? Humanity, we're temporary beings, but we permeate permanence through our legacy. So it is extremely important that we pass down knowledge, and we really need to have kids, man. People need to have kids. And marriage, the institution of marriage, even relationships, a lot of that stuff is falling apart, man. Everybody is just like free going wild right now. And I don't know, man. You gotta owe a sense of responsibility to the world in a way. And some people, you don't want children. I mean, it's all right. Whatever, I can't force you to do anything. But there are things that you miss out on in life that you don't know. You just don't know until, it's the right thing for you. And I've always wanted to be in a lasting relationship, but I was totally okay with the idea of being single my entire life. But it's like two sides of a coin, of course. There's benefits, there's things that are really good about being single. But of course, if you've never been in that amazing, really good relationship, then you don't know what you're missing out on. And now I know it's good, so you're like, being single is great, everything is wonderful, blah, blah, blah. But first of all, it's easy. And why would you pick the easier thing in life? You know? Why would you not be single but looking for something a little more if it presents itself? And I mean, that's the best way to do it anyway, because I didn't find love until I stopped searching for it. And that's something I think everybody can take a note on, who's looking for a relationship, because have fun, enjoy yourself, but you know, be aware of what's happening. Be aware of those people that you meet every day, that you come across, that you exchange, time with, you know? And there are going to be things and opportunities, experiences that take you to a different level. Sorry, I got the hiccups. I mean, specifically, I was like, I still am the typical, well, not still am, but obviously different situation. I'm married now and I'm very, very happy. But anyway, the point is that I didn't start off like this. I mean, I didn't kiss a woman until I was in my 20s. I was fat in my teenage years. I I was so many things. I was lazy. I didn't do my best in school. I just basically passed, and I spent the rest of the time reading and was always told that, I was so much better that I could be doing. So I wasted I I I did a lot of things that could be regrettable, but fortunately they molded me into who I am today. And, I mean, I turned all those things to my benefit, but it took introspection. I had many years alone. And I think that that's something that a lot of people need, and for everybody, it happens at different times. And you shouldn't feel like when you're alone or when things don't go your way. There is always two sides to everything. It's not just, a discussion or an argument that you had that there's two sides to, or a news story. Everything. So when something happens to you and you're alone, you have to think, why is that? And what are the reasons? How can you learn from what has happened? And I spent so much time alone that I got good at understanding everything, because there was nothing I could do except live through other people and watch and just see things. And I paid so much attention to a lot of things in my life because I was tired of making mistakes myself, throwing myself into things. And I felt like I needed to kind of be a little bit more studious, but then too much so. Went the over analytic way. Over analysis leads to paralysis. I was sitting on my thumbs, all this information, all this stuff, all this knowledge I was attaining to try and, do things right, but yet I was doing nothing, for the anyway. It's for my own purposes, my own standards. I wasn't doing anything to what I wanted to do. I was not planting that tree 20 years ago, you know? And it's just as simple as layering and creating just a foundation that you don't really need that end goal to be right there in front of you. You need it to be one step closer. Every time that you're concerned, you know that you made a little more effort to get where you needed to go. And I was stuck, but I didn't ever lose hope. And I kept refining myself as a gentleman, because I said, how am I ever going to get to a place where someone else can love me if I don't love myself? I have to love myself before another person is going to let me in that way. And I'll never be able to nurture somebody else unless I love myself first. And one of the biggest steps was gratuity, you know, being grateful for everything that I had. And I was an agnostic person growing up. I mean, I was religious, sorry. I was religious growing up. But, I went through communion, and then I started the next one, but I couldn't take it, man. I couldn't take all that stuff. And I thought I was an atheist, for a long time until I was like maybe 13. And then, a lot of George Carlin. I realized that I was actually agnostic because what sense is there to think of an absolute nothing when there's no certainty? There's just as much of a certainty of absolute everything, or God, whatever you might call it, a being bigger than us, something more profound than us. It doesn't have to be a God, a human being, or anything like that. It's just something bigger than us. And I always said, you know what? That really is, it's like you just don't know. And ever since I put my faith in God, and I just always said, no matter what, everything is going to be all right, because there is always a positive to every situation. When God leaves you on your own, it's not that you are alone. It's so you can be away from whatever it was you were with. It's not that like the door closed because he wanted to slam it in your face. He wanted you to go another way. He wanted you to do something else. Things don't always work out, and it's not supposed to. Now, you can make things happen. You can really, but you have to feel these things out. There's a reason why they say to trust your senses. And I mean, everything about what we experience talks to us. It talks to us. It doesn't have to be verbal, but these situations can speak to you in a way that makes sense. Like, if you're very pushy with somebody and things just don't feel right, and then you get embarrassed and insulted by that, you shouldn't feel like everything went wrong in that sense, you know? Because whatever you did prior to that moment was working. So whatever didn't work, now you can highlight that area and you could be like, all right, well, that was too much. I was too pushy. I was like, I don't know, too emotional or too sensitive, or, too private, talking about something you shouldn't be, whatever it might be. But, you take a back seat sometimes, and you don't be so hard on yourself. And instead of like living in that moment and those emotions, step back and just analyze everything objectively, logically, you know? That is the huge difference between our body and the physical existence that we have to live, and our brain doing our spiritual existence. And everything that we are existing, is up to interpretation for our brain. And you can be suffering in the physical world, but your brain is so powerful that you can be in a state of neutral, or maybe even bliss, when you are actually suffering, you know? And these are levels that I've taken myself to in my depravity of kind of living in my own sorrow, and my own self-pity, and a lot of, thinking that I'm not, I mean, like full of myself in some ways, where it's like the world owes me something, and like I'm gonna sit here and do my thing, and like eventually it'll come to me. Those thoughts are really, they're good for nothing. They're absolutely good for nothing. So just start on something, anything. Great general, US general once said, start every day by making your bed. And that is something, not joking, maybe 15, 20 years ago now, it got me on the path I am today. And that path I am today is secure for the most part, a lot more than I used to be. I mean, I have a beautiful wife who is absolutely amazing, and it's a relationship that really, I don't think many people have. I am open with my spouse about everything. And she is with me. We do everything that we like. There's really, I mean, anyway, you have to really respect yourself, but respect other people, and you got to go through life just really able to be humbled. And the fact that you can accept difficult challenges or even face things that you can say, you know what, that's not for me. That's all right. That is all right. There's a lot of stuff in this world. You don't have to do everything. But do some things. Do them right. Do them good. Be a professional. Do things that you love. But you have to remember that life is about trying things and putting yourself in uncomfortable moments. Because if you don't make yourself uncomfortable, you're not going to know what it's like to be comfortable. You're going to always be complacent, but also unsatisfied. You're going to feel unfulfilled. And it's something that I don't think most people can live with. And with that, I appreciate everybody listening. This is another beautiful podcast. Appreciate it. We'll be back with another one. Seems to be about every 2 weeks. We've been getting on some smooth schedules with everything now, so maybe as time goes on, we'll be even more frequent with these, and would love to have some guests, but again, we're trying to get the foundation stable here before we start putting up ramparts and everything like that. So appreciate the viewership. Thank you once again. Hats off. Take care, my peoples.